Hey guys, Kevin here from Pwn Zone Gaming, bringing you another Team Fortress Loadout. Now, if you're not familiar with how this series works, basically you guys can submit any 3 weapons for a given class, as well as the word #loadout in the comments below. I'll select one of those and run through some of the pros and cons of playing that loadout. Now, what we have here today is a loadout submitted by Shadow Kitty 2011, the Degreaser, the Reserve Shooter, and the Axtinguisher. Now, if you haven't seen any of my previous videos, basically if you leave a comment on this video, you'll have a chance, whether it's a suggestion for a loadout or whether it's just a random comment, you'll have a chance to win one of the weapons that I talk about today. So basically, as we jump into the gameplay, you'll start to see that I use all 3 of these weapons a lot when I play. In most Team Fortress classes that you've seen me play in my other videos, or just in general when you're playing Team Fortress, a lot of times you'll select one weapon, usually the primary weapon, and you're pretty much going to be using that most of the time. Now, in the case of the Pyro, and especially with this loadout, a lot of times you're kind of switching between all 3 of your weapons, and you really get to use all 3 of them quite a bit. So the reason for this is because these weapons work really well together. The secondary weapon, I play a different secondary weapon, but when I play Pyro, I usually play the Degreaser and the Axtinguisher at least. And the reason for that is that the Degreaser has a reduced weapon switch time. Now, the Reserve Shooter, which is my secondary shotgun, also has a reduced weapon switch time. Now, the benefit of this is that basically pairing these 2 weapons together, that shotgun and the Flamethrower, will allow you to switch weapons so quickly that whenever you switch, your weapon is pretty much automatically ready to go. Now, if you don't know what I mean, basically usually whenever you switch, there's kind of a little transition period time between when you switch weapons and when your weapon's actually ready to fire, and that's pretty much completely erased when you're playing this class. Now, the benefit of that is that using the Axtinguisher with the weapon switch is that you light people on fire with your Degreaser, or I guess even in another class if you were just playing a regular Flamethrower or something else, and then you switch to the Axtinguisher, you're going to be able to deal crits to people that are on fire. So being able to light them on fire and then quick switch so rapidly with that reduced weapon switch time with the Axtinguisher is just unbelievably overpowered. So that's one of the reasons I really love to play this class and this loadout. So just a couple tips with the Flamethrower, just in general. The Degreaser is basically almost like the stock Flamethrower. There's a couple of differences. One is that it has reduced flame time, so if you light someone on fire, they're not going to stay on fire as long, and that's pretty much the only negative that I've really seen to it. Now, the positives are that you do still have your Air Blast, so you'll see me using that a lot in the gameplay. Now, the Air Blast is basically, 1, you can push enemies away, 2, you can basically repel projectiles, so if someone with a rocket launcher shoots a rocket at you, you can Air Blast it back at them and blow them up. You can do the same thing with arrows and flare gun shots and all kinds of things. And the third thing that you can do with an Air Blast is to take and put out other teammates that are on fire. So it definitely becomes very beneficial. You can see right there I just pushed that Pyro away from my medic as he was trying to murder him, so I was able to use that Air Blast to my advantage. Now, make sure that you're kind of paying attention for those Air Blast opportunities, because in combination with the Reserve Shooter, it definitely becomes very helpful, because what the Reserve Shooter does is, I mean, differently than the regular shotgun, is that the Reserve Shooter allows you to deal mini crits to airborne enemies. So it has a reduced ammo capacity, so instead of like the normal 6 shots I think you get for the shotgun, you have 3. So you're going to want to be careful when you're using it and kind of plan your shots accordingly. But if you can take and use that Air Blast of the Degreaser to pop someone up in the air, then you can quick switch to your Reserve Shooter, again with that added quick switch speed, and then just finish them off in the air. Now, it's a lot harder. When I say it like that, it just sounds like it's, oh yeah, you just pop them in the air and shoot off a shot with your Reserve Shooter and you're good to go. It's way harder when I started trying to play this class than it actually looks. What you want to do is kind of try and pick the people that are going to be the easiest to actually mini crit. So you're going to want to look for people like demos, You're going to want to look for soldiers and scouts. I found are the easiest people to kill because those are the people that are already going to be airborne. Now, as I started to kind of play this class, I realized that people kind of jump around a lot, and just in their normal gameplay, like they think it's going to help them avoid damage or whatnot, but you'll see them just jumping around like lunatics, and if you can take advantage of those periods of time that they're jumping with that reserve shooter, you only have 3 seconds from when you take the gun out to actually get those added mini crits, but you can actually steal some kills that way. Now, as I was saying, with the soldier, the demo, and the scout, those are the classes that I've noticed seem to jump more strategically. So you'll see your demos sticky jumping, and you'll see the soldiers taking rocket jumping, and then scouts just obviously they can jump all over the place multiple times. So you'll see those characters airborne the most, besides just the people that you pop in the air with the flamethrower. So you're going to want to kind of take advantage of those characters in particular while using the reserve shooter. Now the reserve shooter, don't get me wrong, it has reduced damage, I think, maybe a little bit just against regular people, but it definitely packs a punch. I love the sound of it. It sounds like it definitely means business. But the reserve shooter, I've found that it's pretty damaging to just use against regular non-airborne people, so I wouldn't sell it short in that capacity. So basically just a couple of tips when you're playing Pyro in general. Just spam your fire. You do have the reduced damage, or you do have the reduced burn time with the Degreaser, but just spamming fire, just lighting people on fire and then kind of picking when you want to go back to them while they're kind of panicking is definitely something you want to do. So that about wraps it up for this video. As always, make sure you subscribe, rate, and comment. I do have a new video coming out every week, and if you would like to suggest a loadout or be entered to win one of the 3 weapons I talked about today, make sure and leave a comment down below. So, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week.